Okay, so I'm trying to figure out how to properly communicate this very, not complex, but intricate argument that is also so crucial to our way of government. And by our way, I mean the way government was intended to be administered, and by the mind of the founders and the creators of the Constitution, notwithstanding even their own interpersonal differences of opinion that occurred throughout their own lives. There was a system, there was a method to the madness that they had created. And central to it is our right to bear arms. The fact of the matter is, you either believe in the right to bear arms or you don't. And I'd be willing to bet almost 100% of my audience believes in the right to bear arms, but to some degree ignorantly. I say ignorantly because most of you would also disagree with my position, at least initially, until you hear the full argument. You would disagree with the notion that we ought to be able to roll down the streets with tanks, and we ought to be able to fly over our cities with our own stealth bombers. We ought to be able to see other planes in the area with our own radar. We ought to be able to mine for our own uranium, to make our own nuclear weapons that the government doesn't know about. I'd say my position on gun control is different than yours. Take a minute to soak it in. Now, I know how ludicrous it seems. This idea is not one that came to me overnight. I just kind of flew to it. This is a study, a matter that I've studied in earnest for years. I know the arguments of our founders. I know exactly what they'd say on the matter. I know exactly what they did say. I've read the source material. I've read their letters. I've got a whole library full of books that are full of their letters. I've studied the better part of my life this matter. And what it comes down to, and why I say that you're either for it or against it, is this. I have reasoned that even if you are to support limitations on a citizen's right to arm themselves, limitations being any limitations conceivable, that you are ultimately against the right to bear arms. And the argument is quite simple. If you're for the right to bear arms, what are you for? You're for one's right to stand up against injustice of some sort. That's what you're authorizing. You're not authorizing a villain to stand up against righteous justice. You're authorizing, as a last resort, the justified person's defense of their person. Why? Because it is just. It is good. In the end, it is our own bodies and our own lives. Even the ones that come with the handcuffs and the trucks and the SWAT teams and all that, it is still our bodies that they must take possession of. George Washington, as president, rode into town to put down rebellion. I believe in the government's right to put down rebellion and to control its people to some extent. But I also believe that I have the right to defend myself. Now, if you're going to grant one the right to defend themselves and say and admit the truth that they do have the natural right, and the argument is there for natural rights, which I don't want to get into right now. But of course, as a core tenet of natural right and natural law, one does have the individual right to defend themselves. Now, if you're in the position of defending yourself, exactly what weapons do you not want at your disposal? It doesn't matter how many bullets you have or what guns you have or what grenades you have or explosives or what weaponry you have. If it's inferior, if the quantity, the quality, or whatever, by whatever measure, your weaponry is inferior to that of your opponent, your right to bear arms need not exist. The right to bear arms exists to overcome and to conquer. The right to bear arms doesn't exist for you to put up a gallant effort. The right to bear arms does not exist so that we can all become a bunch of David Crockett's and Jim Bowies. The right to bear arms doesn't exist for our history to be made of a bunch of Alamos. The right to bear arms exists so that we as a people can do today what our founders did, which is break the bonds of its political ties to another. You can't do that without the right to bear arms. You can't do that without the ability to win the fight. Now, I, like most sensible individuals, deplores violence. I don't want political issues solved with violence. I follow the path of nonviolence. Gandhi, King, and Jesus. The three greatest examples in all of human history of the power of nonviolence. Just because I believe in nonviolence does not believe that I don't believe in the right to bear arms. And I understand that the right to bear arms and believing in it means I believe in one's right to fight successfully, not futilely. If you believe in limitations of the right to bear arms, you must admit that you believe in one's right to fight futilely. Our founders were able to wage war against Great Britain. Actually, a defensive war, because Great Britain was here and we were not there. They were seen as the invading force. They were seen as the occupiers, which they were. And we did our best to repel them with force of arms because they wouldn't leave any other way. Now, fortunately, the people did have the same technology of arms that the government had at that time, but the same is not true now. Our Constitution was designed to last a long time, based on principles, and the principles don't change over time. But somehow, our idea of truth has changed. Somehow, we've gotten to the point where not only is the government strong enough to be completely impervious to the will of the people when it comes to force, but the government need not even consider that the people don't like its laws. That's tyranny. Tyranny has many different definitions, but one of them is definitely that when the people fear the government, that's tyranny. Conversely, if the government fears the people, that is freedom. That can never happen in the situation we're in. That is what is fundamentally at odds with nature's law. We as free human beings ought to be able to dictate to our government, this is how it's got to be, Jack. All it takes is a united populace. And there's nothing stopping us from uniting besides a degree to which we don't understand each other and a degree to which we want the government dictating to us. There is a faction of people that want the government making right and wrong, making truth. And there's another faction of people that understand that truth does not flow from government. Truth flows as it flows from the truth maker. And it's only in our capacity as human beings to understand it, not to try and change it.